There's a specific pitch to a scream that doesn't just hit your eardrums. It vibrates in your bones, shakes the foundations of the room, and leaves a permanent crack in the universe. I heard that scream on a Tuesday afternoon in the sterile, beige-toned waiting room of my father's law firm. It wasn't a place for screaming. It was a place for hushed tones, for the rustle of important papers, for the quiet, expensive scent of lemon polish and regret. We were all there, my mother, my sister Chloe, her husband Mark, and me, gathered to hear the reading of our father's will. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, a nervous energy that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with money. My father, a titan of industry and a master of conditional love, had finally passed. His heart, which I suspect was a small, cold stone, had simply stopped. And now, we were here to learn the final tally of our worth in his eyes. Chloe was perched on the edge of a leather sofa, her hand tightly clutching Mark's. She looked the part of the grieving heiress, dressed in a sleek black designer dress, her eyes red-rimmed behind a veil of tears I knew were more from anxiety than sorrow. She'd been Daddy's little princess her entire life, the golden child who could do no wrong. She'd married Mark, a man from a similarly suitable family, and their union was the crowning achievement of my father's social ambitions. I sat across from them, feeling like a ghost in my own family, the reliable, unglamorous younger sister. The one who chose a career in social work over the family business, who lived in a modest apartment, who had never quite fit the gleaming, polished mold of a Thorne heir. The lawyer, a man named Mr. Sterling with the demeanor of a startled tortoise, cleared his throat and began to read the dry, legal language. The bequests were precise, cold, and exactly as expected. The summer house to mother. A series of trusts and stocks to various cousins and charities. Then he got to the heart of the matter. The company. Thornhaven Industries. To my daughter, Chloe Thorne Wilkinson, Mr. Sterling read, his voice monotone, I bequeath my entire ownership stake in Thornhaven Industries, amounting to 51% of voting shares, to be held in a trust overseen by the board until such time as the company's annual revenue consistently exceeds. He droned on about the conditions, but Chloe wasn't hearing them. A triumphant, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. She had won. She had gotten everything. She squeezed Mark's hand, and he gave her a proud, greedy look. They were the king and queen of the castle. I felt a pang of something. Not jealousy, but a deep, weary sadness. It was the final, official confirmation of what I had always known. I braced myself for my own clause. A small trust fund, probably. A token gesture. Enough to ensure I wouldn't embarrass the family by living in outright poverty. Mr. Sterling adjusted his glasses. And to my daughter, Eastlaw Thorne, I looked down at my hands, waiting for the polite, dismissive footnote. I bequeath the entirety of my remaining estate, including my personal holdings, real estate portfolio, and liquid assets, representing a 49% stake in Thornhaven Industries, with full and immediate control. The silence in the room was so absolute, I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. I looked up, sure I had misheard. My mother's hand was frozen over her mouth. Mark's face had gone slack with disbelief. Chloe's triumphant smile had vanished. What? She whispered. Then louder. What did you just say? Mr. Sterling looked uncomfortable. The terms are quite clear, Mrs. Wilkinson. Your father left controlling interest to your sister, Eastlaw. You have a majority share, but she holds the controlling vote. She is, effectively, the new owner of Thornhaven. It was as if he had thrown a lit match into a room soaked in gasoline. Chloe shot to her feet. The movement was so violent it knocked a porcelain vase from a side table. It shattered on the floor, 1,000 pieces scattering across the polished wood. No, she shrieked, and that was the scream. The one that shook the walls. That's not possible. That's a lie. He would never. He promised me. He promised us. She was looking at Mark, her eyes wide with frantic, terrified betrayal. Chloe, please, my mother pleaded, her voice trembling. Let Mr. Sterling explain. Explain what? she roared, turning her fury on me. Her face was contorted, unrecognizable. What did you do? What did you do to him? You poisoned him against me. You always were his favorite, slinking around, playing the humble one, when all along you were just waiting to steal what was mine. I stood up, my legs feeling like water. Chloe, I didn't know. I swear to you, I had no idea. Liar. The word was a weapon. You ruined my life. You've always wanted to ruin my life. You were jealous of Mark, jealous of my marriage, jealous of everything I have. Her voice was raw, cracking with a pain that felt both performative and terrifyingly real. Everyone in the room was frozen, watching the scene unfold with a kind of horrified fascination. The secretaries outside were probably listening. Everything I worked for, everything I built, my future. You've taken it all, she screamed, her body trembling violently. The tears were streaming down her face now, not the delicate ones from before, but ugly, gasping sobs of pure rage and despair. And then her legs gave out. She didn't just sit down. She collapsed. She fell to the floor amidst the shattered porcelain, her body curling into a fetal position as great, wrenching sobs racked her frame. She was the picture of utter, total devastation. The golden child brought low. And, in the eyes of everyone in that room, I was the one who had pushed her. I stood still, my own heart breaking apart. This was a nightmare. This inheritance wasn't a gift. It was a weapon my father had left for me to wield, or to be destroyed by. I wanted to go to her, to kneel beside her, to tell her we could fix this, that I would sign it all over to her. But I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by her hatred and the weight of a secret I had kept for her for over a decade. A secret that was the real reason for my father's brutal, final decision. And that's when Mark moved. He had been staring at Chloe on the floor, his expression a whirlpool of shock, anger, and a dawning, terrible calculation. He looked from his sobbing wife, the woman who no longer controlled the fortune he had married into, to me, the new holder of the purse strings. And he ran. He didn't run to her. He didn't drop to his knees to comfort his devastated wife. He took 2 quick strides across the room, and he ran to me. To understand the explosion in the waiting room, you have to understand the fault lines that had been spreading beneath our family's foundation for years. You have to understand my sister's marriage. Chloe didn't just marry Mark. She acquired him. He was the perfect accessory. Handsome, from an old money family that had lost most of its fortune but none of its name, and ambitious in a way that complemented her own hunger for status. Their wedding was the social event of the season. My father beamed, seeing his dynasty secured. I saw something else. I saw the way Mark's eyes would wander when he thought no one was looking. I saw the calculated way he agreed with my father's every word. I tried to talk to Chloe once, early on. He just seems very focused on the future, I'd said, choosing my words carefully. She'd laughed, a tinkling, dismissive sound. Of course he is, Isla. That's what makes him a winner. Unlike the deadbeats you're always trying to save at that little job of yours. So I stayed silent. I played the role of the happy sister-in-law at family dinners, biting my tongue as Mark held forth on politics he didn't understand and business he hadn't earned. The crack first appeared about 3 years into their marriage. I was working late at the community center when my phone rang. It was Chloe, her words slurred and messy.
Isla?
"Es me. Can you come get me?" She was at a hotel bar across town alone. When I arrived, she was slumped over a martini glass, her perfect hair disheveled. She looked up at me, her eyes glassy with alcohol and tears. "He's having an affair," she'd whispered, the words dripping with a pain so raw it shocked me. I took her back to my apartment, put her on my couch, and made her coffee. The story tumbled out in fits and starts. She'd found text messages. A woman from his golf club. It had been going on for months. "Don't tell Dad," she begged, clutching my arm, her nails digging into my skin.
Promise me, Isla.
"You can't tell anyone. Especially not Dad. If he knows the perfect marriage is a lie, he'll cut me off. He'll give everything to you." The statement hung in the air, a testament to the twisted economy of our family's love. Her greatest fear wasn't the loss of her husband, but the loss of her inheritance. "Chloe, you have to leave him," I said, my heart aching for her. "You can't stay with a man who cheats on you. The money doesn't matter." "It's all that matters," she cried, her voice desperate. "It's all I have. It's all I am to him, to Mark, to everyone. Without it, I'm nothing."
I saw it then.
The gilded cage she lived in. She was so terrified of losing her status, her identity as the wealthy heiress, that she would tolerate any humiliation to keep it. She made me swear on our mother's life that I would never tell a soul. She went to marriage counseling with Mark. He apologized, blamed stress, promised it would never happen again. She chose to believe him. Or, more accurately, she chose to believe the illusion. I kept her secret. I carried it for her. It was a lead weight in my stomach at every family function, watching him play the devoted husband, watching my father clap him on the back. I hated the secret. I hated the lie. But I had promised. A year later, it happened again. A different woman. A business trip that never was. This time, she didn't come to me. She didn't tell anyone. She buried it. She bought a new sports car. She planned a lavish vacation. She perfected the art of pretending. But my father knew. I don't know how he found out. Maybe he had a private investigator. Maybe his network of business contacts whispered the gossip. He never spoke of it to me. Not directly. But his attitude toward Mark changed. The claps on the back became fewer. The discussions about the future of the company became more guarded. He started asking me more questions about my work, about my life. He'd call me sometimes just to talk. It was strange and uncomfortable. I thought he was just getting sentimental in his old age. Now, standing in the lawyer's office, watching Mark run to my side, I understood. My father hadn't been getting sentimental. He'd been conducting an audit. He was a businessman to his core, and he had assessed his son-in-law and found him to be a liability. A leaky vessel for the Thorne fortune. He saw Mark's greed, his infidelity, his fundamental lack of character.
And he saw me.
The daughter, who didn't care about the money. The daughter, who had built a life outside his empire. The daughter, who kept a painful secret to protect her sister, even though it cost her nothing but her own peace of mind. In his cold, calculating way, he decided I was the stronger bet. The better investment. He didn't give me the company because he loved me more. He gave it to me because he trusted me more not to let a man like Mark Wilkinson get his hands on it. And in doing so, he didn't just make me rich. He made me a target. Mark reached me and grabbed my arm, his grip too tight. His face was a mask of frantic concern, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. "Isla, my God, are you okay?" he said, his voice oozing a false sincerity that made my skin crawl. He was positioning himself.
The supportive brother-in-law.
The stable presence. By my side. The side with the money. I looked from his grasping hand to Chloe, who was still on the floor, sobbing, watching this new betrayal unfold through her tears. Her husband had abandoned her for the source of the money. Her worst fear was manifesting in the most brutally graphic way imaginable. In that moment, she didn't just lose her inheritance. She lost her husband. She lost the life she had fought so desperately and so dishonestly to hold on to. She lost everything. And the secret I had kept to protect her had become the very thing that destroyed her. The aftermath of the will reading was a silent, awful car ride home. My mother sat in the back with me, clutching my hand, her face pale and confused. Mark had tried to get into the car, to come back to the house with us, but my mother, in a rare moment of steel, had told him, "I think you should go to your wife," before closing the door on his stunned face. Chloe had left in a separate car, escorted by a shell-shocked junior partner from the law firm. She hadn't looked at me. The house felt like a mausoleum. My father's presence was everywhere, in the cold, expensive art, in the imposing furniture, in the silence he had always demanded. He was gone, but he was still pulling the strings, still orchestrating our misery from beyond the grave. For days, nothing happened. The phone didn't ring. Chloe didn't call. Mark didn't show up. The silence was more terrifying than the screaming. It was the calm before the second storm. I met with Mr. Sterling. The numbers he showed me were astronomical. The power I now held was real and terrifying. I could sell the company. I could run it into the ground. I could fire the entire board. The weight of it was suffocating. This wasn't me. I helped people apply for food stamps. I didn't preside over a multinational corporation. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't keep it. It was tainted money, earned through a lifetime of my father's cutthroat business practices and given to me as a final, destructive act of favoritism. I would sign it over to Chloe. All of it. It was what she wanted. It was what she felt she deserved. Maybe it would fix things. I called her. It went straight to voicemail. I texted her. Chloe, we need to talk.
Please.
I want to fix this. No response. It was Mark who finally broke the silence. He showed up at my apartment, looking haggard, a bouquet of expensive flowers in his hand, a peace offering for the wrong sister. Isla, he said, giving me the charming, wounded smile that had probably worked on a dozen women before. Can I come in? We need to talk. I should have slammed the door, but I was curious.
I wanted to see how deep the audacity ran.
He stepped inside, looking around my small, cozy apartment with barely concealed disdain. How are you holding up? He asked, oozing fake concern. What do you want, Mark? He set the flowers down on my coffee table like a claim flag. I want to talk about the future. Chloe's not well. She's not thinking clearly. The pressure, the shock, it's been too much for her. I said nothing. I just watched him, this man who had run from his weeping wife to cozy up to her sister. She's talking about drastic things, he continued, lowering his voice conspiratorially. She's not fit to run the company, Isla. You know that. My God, the board would eat her alive. But you're different. You're smart. You're steady. But you don't know this world. He leaned forward. Let me help you. We can be a team. I can run the day-to-day. I can be the face. You can be the silent power behind the throne. We can make Thornhaven stronger than ever. Together. There it was.
The pitch.
He wasn't here for Chloe. He was here for a job interview. He was trying to broker a deal to get his hands on the power he thought he'd married into. I felt a cold disgust settle in my stomach. You want me to give you control of my company? It's our company, he corrected smoothly. The family company. And I am family. I know what Arthur would have wanted. Do you? I asked, my voice quiet. Do you know what he knew, Mark? His smile faltered just a fraction. What are you talking about? The women at the golf club, I said, watching his face carefully. The one from the business trip to Dubai. The one whose apartment you rent on the west side. The color drained from his face. The charming facade crumbled, revealing the panicked, greedy man underneath. I don't. Chloe told you? She's lying. She's always been jealous, unstable. Chloe didn't tell me. I interrupted. My father knew. The words hung in the air, sucking all the oxygen out of the room. Mark looked like I'd physically struck him. He understood instantly. The cold calculations, the reassessment of his value, the reason he'd been cut out, it all clicked into place. Why you're here, isn't it? I pressed, my voice gaining strength. You think you can manipulate me because I'm the soft sister. The one who works at the community center. You think I'm an easy mark. But my father gave this to me because he knew you for what you are. A leaky vessel. A fraud. And he knew I would never let you get a single cent of it. His face twisted with rage. The mask was completely off now. You sanctimonious bitch, he hissed. You think you're better than me? You just won the lottery because your crazy father had a last-minute change of heart. You didn't earn this. You're right, I said, walking to the door and holding it open. I didn't. And I don't want it. But I can tell you one thing with absolute certainty. You will never, ever have it. Now get out of my home. He left, sputtering with rage, his plans in ashes. The confrontation gave me a strange sense of clarity. My father's reasoning was cruel and destructive, but about Mark, he had been right. Giving any of this power to him would be a disaster. I couldn't just sign it over to Chloe, because Mark would take it from her. I had to be smarter. I had to break the cycle. I finally went to see her. I went to the perfect, empty mansion she shared with Mark. She answered the door herself, looking hollowed out. She was wearing sweatpants, her hair was unwashed, and the light in her eyes was gone. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice flat.
To talk.
"To fix this." She let me in. The house was a showroom, cold and unlived in. We sat in the vast, white living room, surrounded by things that had never brought her any real happiness. "I'm giving you the company, Chloe," I said. For a second, a flicker of the old avarice sparked in her eyes, but it died just as quickly.
Why?
"So you can play the magnanimous saint? So everyone can talk about how wonderful, how generous poor, humble Isla is?" "No," I said, my patience fraying. "So you can be free of him." She looked confused.
Who?
"Mark. Chloe, he came to my apartment. He tried to get me to make him CEO. He ran from you on the floor of that lawyer's office to try and cut a deal with me. He doesn't love you. He never did. He loves the idea of Thornhaven. And Dad knew it. I told her everything. About the affairs I knew of. About my father's knowledge. I showed her the notes I'd made after my conversation with Mark, detailing his proposal. She listened, and as she did, something broke inside her. Not a scream this time, but a quiet, final shattering. The last illusion fell away. She started to cry, not the performative sobs from the office, but quiet, hopeless tears. "I knew," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I always knew. I just didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to be nothing." "You were never nothing," I said, my own eyes filling with tears. "You are my sister, and you are worth more than this entire company." We sat in silence for a long time, two sisters surrounded by the ruins of our father's legacy. In the end, we didn't fix it with a grand gesture. We fixed it with a lawyer. I transferred the controlling shares to her, but with an unbreakable, ironclad prenuptial agreement that severed Mark from the company completely. He would get a divorce settlement, but he would never get Thornhaven. Chloe signed the papers, without hesitation. She finally saw the cage for what it was. She filed for divorce the next day. The scandal was enormous, of course, but it was her scandal to manage. For the first time, she was fighting for herself, not for a man or an inheritance. We're not close. The wounds are too deep. The jealousy and resentment built over a lifetime don't vanish overnight. But we talk. Sometimes she even asks me for advice. My father thought he was choosing the stronger daughter to protect his empire. In a way, he was. But the strength he saw wasn't for running a company. It was the strength to finally tell the truth, to break the chain, and to give my sister a chance, however late, to build a life that was truly her own. She lost everything she thought defined her, and in that devastating, public loss, she finally found a chance to find herself.